and welcome back to BookTube with Amy. It's been a while. As always, the second I've sat down to film, Bailey has decided it is cuddle time, and so you'll probably see him or hear him pattering about, but it's fine. Hi, I am back briefly. So I have finished up my mat leave now at work, and it's just a case of waiting patiently for my child to arrive, and I thought might be a good time just to make a couple of videos and catch up on where I finished last year with all of my various reading challenges and goals and statistics, and do a bit of a geeky video there, and then maybe do another video talking about plans going forward for 2024, because that will be quite a different reading year for me, I would imagine. So that's what we're doing today. We're just going to catch up on my 2023 reading and where I finished. Now, full disclosure, I went on a hell of a slump at like the end of 2023. I just didn't really have the concentration for picking up as many different books as I had been, and so I was sort of just mood reading exclusively. So I don't know where I have finished in terms of any of my stats or my results. I didn't even populate them into my stats on time. I literally sat and did it the other day and made Simon rejig the report to say that I had put them on at the end of the year. Because I have no idea where I'm sitting. I've not even looked at it myself yet. I know I didn't do as well in my I seriously need to finish this challenge as I would have liked or planned to do, because I did end up mooding quite a bit at the end of the year and no picking up sequels as much as I had been at the beginning of the year. But like, it is what it is. My brain was just elsewhere and I didn't really have the concentration for books that were quite heavy or anything that wasn't just light frivolous reads basically, or something that I wasn't already enjoying. I didn't really want to pick up a big dense fantasy book or anything like that, or a really dark horror book. It's just not what I was in the mood for. So all of that warbled to say I've no idea where I'm sitting, but we'll find out together. I am not going to be too hard on myself. There are some stats that I would be quite disappointed if I let slip at the end of the year, because I had worked quite hard at them. But like, I'm not going to take anything into 2024. What I haven't hit, and they're really just for me anyway. I read for pleasure, and I just set myself goals and track my stats to try and make myself a wee bit more of an accountable reader. But like, I'm not going to be smacking my hand and penalising myself if I haven't hit any of these goals. So let's jump in. So we'll start off just with my total number of books read last year, so I will confer with the Goodreads. So I set myself a bit of a lower target last year because I knew I was going to be quite heavily focusing on series and trying to read from a lot of different genres. I was trying to vlog a wee bit more and pick up some books I maybe wouldn't ordinarily pick up, and so I knew that that might take me a wee bit longer to read them. So I had set myself the goal of reading 85 books last year, whereas the year before it was 100. I managed to read 98 books, so I'm very, very chuffed with that. In total, it came to 30,226 pages, and my average book length for the year was 308 pages, which isn't too bad. I did read quite a whack of cozy mysteries last year, to be honest. If they aren't in like my top read genre, I would be hella surprised. And my average rating for 2023 according to Goodreads is 4.1. So again, no too bad actually in terms of where I was sitting rating wise. So I am chuffed by how many books I managed to read, because obviously I still managed to hit and surpass my goal. Really pleased with that. I did plan to read quite a lot of chunkier books last year, and that never really happened, so I guess that's why I've managed to read a wee bit more, is because you know, I've maybe read 2 or 3 books in the space of time that it would have taken me to read one chonker that I wanted to read, because I didn't really get to any of my bigger books that I was planning to. No sure next year will be the year for that either. Well, this year technically, but I guess we will see. We'll go through my shelf destruct challenge that I set myself next then. So I only set myself 6 books for shelf destruct. The thing with me is, because I'm such a mood reader, that if I set myself the 12, I know I'm just not going to get around to them, whereas I feel like the 6 is more achievable to try and get to in the year. And I'm not one of these people who's doing a shelf destruct just because I think the book looks crap and I want it off my shelf. Otherwise I would just unhaul it. With the amount of books that me and Simon have managed to collect over the years, we're both pretty comfortable with an unhaul if it's something that we just decide is no longer for us. But these books are normally from genres that I've taken a bit of a punt on. Maybe it's something that I wouldn't have ordinarily picked up, but there was something about it that made me decide I wanted to give it a go, and so I really do want to give these books a chance. So the first book that I set myself was The Island Child by Molly Aitken. So this book I actually received in a My Chronicle book box. I didn't pick this for myself, and it was sort of like magical realism with a feministy slant and some mythology tied into it. It sounds like it could have been my cup of tea really, but it's just far too descriptive, far too lyrical. You know, I was at a few chapters in to the story really before I was really even getting the gist of who our main character was, because everything was just very heavily descriptive, and that's not a me book. So I think although the premise sounded interesting, the writing style definitely wasn't for me. Far too flowery, far too fancy, and I am a dead impatient reader, and so I'm like, right, I get that that's lovely, and maybe some people want to read for lovely, beautiful, artistic, flowery writing, and great for them, but I want to read because I want you to tell me a story. Like, I didn't need 18 mountains described to me before I know who my main character is. So I DNF'd this one, unfortunately, and it has been unhauled. Then I read Part of Your World by Liz Braswell. So this is part of the Twisted Tales series that is written by quite a few different authors at this point. There's Liz Braswell, there's Jen Cantalina, is there Elizabeth Lim as well? They're right in front of me over there, so I'm trying to see. Elizabeth Lim. And I read one last year, didn't enjoy it, was quite disappointed because Simon has been collecting me these books for special occasions and random trips to the supermarket when there's a new one, and he always puts like the loveliest wee inscriptions in them, and they've held quite a special place in my heart for a wee while, and so I was excited to finally get around to reading them. And I thought, like, they'd be quite nice wee palette cleansers, because although they are a series, they're all like individual stories, and I thought they would be good wee palette cleansers for in between some of my other heavier series. But I was really disappointed with the one that I read last year, therefore put them on my shelf destruct, and I seriously need to finish this challenge for 2023 to see if that would force me to read one. And I started Part of Your World because I thought, if I'm going to love any of these, I'm going to love the Ariel one. Like, I am obsessed with mermaids and The Little Mermaid and all things underwatery. So decided to give that one a go. Was not a fan, and so I have decided to DNF the series, although you'll slag me for this maybe, I'm keeping them on my shelves just because I'm a wee bit sentimental about them and I didn't really want to get rid of them. Simon very kindly has says, like, bin them for the shelf space if you want, but we aren't at that point in the library. We still have 2 3/4 of a bookcase that is not full yet, so we're not at the stage where it's one in, one out, but maybe later down the line I'll pick like the ones he's written the nicest messages in and keep them and the rest of them can go. But I am going to DNF that series. It's no something that I will be continuing to read going forward. They're just no for me. And then I read Practical Demon Keeping by Christopher Moore. So this is like a dark fantasy comedy, and I don't know how I feel about comedy books, right? Because I feel like Simon has picked up quite a lot over the years that are on his shelves where they breach that like sort of a comedy line. And I feel like I never really enjoy them. Like I enjoy, this is going to sound bad, but I enjoy books that are like so dark they're funny, right? Or like books where a character's just like a horrible person and therefore they are funny, more than a book that sets out to be intentionally funny. I am going to give Terry Pratchett another chance on that note though, because I haven't read him for a good number of years, and so many people that I love on BookTube absolutely adore him, and I know that Simon absolutely adores him, so I maybe will give that another go and see if that can be like my entry into some comedy. But I just feel like books that are specifically meant to be funny, I tend not to find funny. I think I just have quite a dark and twisted sense of humour that if it's not very dark and twisty, I'm no there. Like, I don't find that hysterical. This sounded really promising though, and I've seen some good things about Christopher Moore's writing on BookTube and Goodreads and other places, and so I took a punt on this one ages ago in a charity shop and just never picked it up. So thought, this will be the year for it, we'll give it a try, and I did, but unfortunately I did end up DNFing this one. It wasn't for me. I really didn't enjoy it. I feel like it tried to tell too many different stories. If it focused on like our main two characters and their journey, like I would have enjoyed that a lot more, but it was like them two and then like this random person that they end up attacking at one point's roommate's story, and then like this town and we get like every single person in the town's story, and again it just wasn't really going anywhere at any great speed and I got a bit bored with it, so I DNF'd this one. It just wasn't for me. I've seen reviews of people saying that the second and third book, because it's a trilogy, the second and third book in this series are absolutely brilliant, the third one in particular, but I am not going to read two crap books to get to a maybe decent book. I just didn't really have the patience for that at all. So another DNF. And then I read The Corset by Laura Purcell, and I actually have a full book review on this one, so I'll just link that to save further waffle here if you're interested in my thoughts on that one. This one turned out to be a 3-star read for me. I enjoyed bits of it a lot, and other bits of it just really frustrated me. The ending really frustrated me, and I don't think I would pick up another Laura Purcell book going forward. I just don't think she's an author for me. I think that she tries, or I was going to say she tries to market herself, or maybe it's just she is marketed as very like gothic horror, and I don't feel like she is very gothic horror. Certainly not the type of gothic horror that I enjoy to read. So yeah, it's just no for me. It has been unhauled. I sold that one actually because it was a signed edition, so it has went to somebody who will absolutely love it. And then I read The Woman Who Went to Bed for a Year by Sue Townsend. I was told by Simon not to read this book. Simon, who picks me out the best books ever sometimes just on a whim, will go into a bookshop and pick me a wee gem I would never have considered picking up for myself, and it's like my best read of the year. Simon, who has been with me for 9 years and knows my reading tastes very, very well. And also Ange, who, again, buddy reads books with me pretty constantly. We have our book club, we have our Charlene Harris read along, we read books together. And amongst that we have started watching TV shows together, me, her and Simon. So again, knows my tastes very, very well. They both says, you're going to hate this book, the book is crap, don't read it. And I read it and it was crap and I DNF'd it. The book was horrific. There was just homophobic stuff in there, like really misogynistic viewpoints. The mental health representation, if you could call it that, was absolutely atrocious, and I hated it, rage quit it, DNF'd it. It has been on hold from my shelves forever. Bye bye Sue Townsend. Simon actually has all of the Adrian Mole books by Sue Townsend, and he really loves them, and I sort of feel like if I like this one, maybe I'd give them a go, but on the back of this book I don't think I would give them a go, just because that was so awful. And then lastly was The Society of S, and that was by Susan Hubbard, and I didn't get around to that one actually, but I am not going to unhaul it because I've unhauled all of my DNFs here and the actual books that I've read, so I'm going to leave that one on my shelf and give it another chance. I am not going to set myself a shelf destruct TBR for 2024, I do not think. I guess we'll see, but I'm just going to give that book another chance. It can stay on the shelf for now, and it'll maybe be on the next time I set myself a shelf destruct challenge. At this stage you might want to grab some refreshment, because we're going to go into my seriously need to finish this challenge, which is a challenge I run every single year for the past 2 years, and will be doing it in 2024 also, and it is where I try to complete all of the series that I have currently started, and will start new series as I finish other ones meant to, and so it's quite lengthy, so grab yourself a wee drink and then you can come back and we can have a gibber about all the books that I was meant to read and maybe haven't. First up, I wanted to finish the Shatter Me series by Tahereh Mafi. I've been reading it the past 2 years and quite a tumultuous relationship with the series. I really didn't like the first book. The second one was an improvement. Adored the third one, was a 5-star. Was really excited to finish the series, and I thought the end of the series was absolute gash, to be honest. So I read Restore Me, Defy Me and Imagine Me by Tahereh Mafi, but I will never read another book by Tahereh Mafi again. She is no an author for me. I don't think she has any idea as to how to end a series, to be honest. I think she just really ruined the end of her books, and I didn't enjoy how they wrapped up. I have since unhauled Restore Me, Defy Me and Imagine Me. I've kept the first 3 on my shelves because I might talk about them at some points in videos or whatever, but I was like, I'm not even wasting the space with the rest of the series. In fact, did I keep them? Yes, I did. I kept the first 3 and I unhauled the last 3 because they were rotten. Then, a big failure. I had planned to read The Great Hunt and The Dragon Reborn from the Wheel of Time series. These were the chunkies that I was giving myself time to read and that I was hoping to get to. I did not get to either of these. So me and Simon started a series called Talking Trollocs, where we caught up every 100 pages or so reading the Wheel of Time books. We read the first one together, really enjoyed doing the series together. We just like doing things together. It's always more fun when he is involved because he's just pure nonsense and carry on, and I know that you guys like to see him on the channel and all. And we're going to do second series, third series with the second and third book. However, did not happen, so that is a big fail for me. Series I did not continue. Then we were going to read You, the next You book, so For You and Only You, that was out last year. Again, we read these together and do 100-page catch-ups on the channel, but we just didn't get around to reading this one last year, so that is another series I have not continued. And then the Twisted Tales series, which I've already spoken about, so that is a series I have decided to DNF and will now move into the DNF camp, because I did try to continue it, however it's just not for me. And then I also have Satan Burnouts Must Die, which is the first in a series by David Sodergren. The second book isn't out yet, however I keep it on the list so that it is ever present in my mind and it doesn't get forgotten about, because it is a series. By the way, I really love Satan's Burnouts Must Die, and David, in an interview that I did with him for Party Indie August, basically said that he isn't, like, he's got the second book all ready to go, but he isn't publishing it until people start getting involved in the first book, and you need to get involved because I need this book in my life. So like that's my personal campaign to make that happen. It is brilliant. It is set out in like the American Midwest. It's part cowboy, part biker gang, kick-ass female lead. It's gruesome, it's gory, it's brilliant. So like, gonna please read it. And then we have the Alchemist series by Michael Scott. And so I planned to read all 6 of those books last year. I had read the first one previously, but I knew I'd need to do a reread because it had been a couple of years and I had them all sitting on my shelf. My sister very kindly got them for me a couple of Christmases ago, and I was like, right, I need to read them. So last year, I didn't manage to get all 6, but I did manage to read 4. So I managed to read The Alchemist, The Magician, The Sorceress and The Necromancer. So this will be a series that I have continued. And then was the Deepwood Mystery series, Deepwood Witches Mysteries, that I've been reading by Shay MacLeod, and I've been reading these for the past 2 years as part of Indie August. I have really been enjoying them, and so I wanted to read the next one in that series, which I did, which is Wisteria, Witchery and Woe. That was the second one. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's definitely a series that I will want to continue. And then I started the Wolf Song series, or is it the Green Creek series by TJ Klune. So I have been buying the republished versions as they have been coming out, purely from an aesthetic point of view because they match my other TJ Klune books, and I'm very happy about that as a collector because they look lovely on my shelves. So I read book 1 and 2 in that series, so it will be a series I have continued. And then I hadn't planned to read this series when I set out my I seriously need to finish this challenge, but I read the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers last year, and I read that in its entirety. I buddy read that with Gaia from Gaia Athena, who's on a bit of a BookTube hiatus at the minute, but we've been emailing back and forward and we read the entire series together, which was a real bunch of fun, and it was quite nice to still have like some BookTube connections even though I've been away from BookTube for a wee while. That said, like, I don't talk to Ange literally every single day of my life, but aye, it was just really nice, and we both had very similar thoughts on the books, and it was nice just to discuss some stuff, and it was a bit of a handhold for me as well because I am a huge sci-fi girly and I am trying to get a bit more into sci-fi, and I think that this series and reading them with Gaia definitely helped, so I thoroughly enjoyed those. That will be a series that I completed last year. Chuffed for me. Another series I completed last year that I didn't intend to even start when I laid out this challenge was the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series by Jenny Han. I got these for my birthday and I just needed some light frivolous reads at the end of last year, and so I started the first one in this series and I did the 3 of them back to back. I thoroughly enjoyed them. They were very devourable. Elements of it annoying because I appreciate they are aimed at teenage girls, and so some of the teenage girliness I was like, eye roll, but I really enjoyed them. I read the 3 of them back to back, so like they obviously must have been decent, and that's another series that I have continued. I also plan to continue Heartstopper and read Heartstopper Volume 5 when that came out. I am looking at it right now. I devoured it as soon as it came out. Simon very kindly had it sent for it being released to the house for me, and so I read that as well, and that is another series I have continued. And then, controversially, I'd planned to read House of Sky and Breath, the second Crescent City novel. I just got caught up in the pure hype when it came out because I hated the first one. Like, I really hated it. I didn't know why I even bought the second one, but I did, because I got caught up in the hype. And then I didn't read it the year it came out, and so it was on my seriously need to finish this challenge for last year, and was like, no. I started it. I think I got like Well, actually, I think I got a wee bit further in. Like, I was going to say I think I got 2 chapters in. I don't think I did. Like, I think I got through the prologue and I got through quite a few chapters, and I was actually enjoying it and was like, oh my god, yes, like maybe, you know, like it's not going to be as smutty or whatever, maybe we've got some of that out of our systems in the first book, but then no, the smut hit hard and I was like, no for me, absolutely not. Like, I'm not a prude, but it's not the type of fantasy I'm here to read. Like, I want my fantasy to have dragons, and didn't be anybody making wingspan jokes with it being Miss Sarah J Maas. But I just don't think it's fantasy because it's fairies getting railed, like, as opposed to it being normal people getting railed in any other romance. It's just no what I read for. I don't mind smut if it makes sense for the storyline, as long as it isn't overpowering. But I DNF this series. I probably will not pick up another Sarah J Maas book, if I'm honest. I say it all the time, but I adored Throne of Glass. Like, I have the Nerdy Ink recovers for Throne of Glass. I'm looking at them right now. They are so fucking stunning on my shelves. Some of the prettiest books that I own. Like, definitely the series that got me really back hard into reading. Loved it. Loved it. And I've been disappointed in anything else that I've picked up ever since, because it's just like fairy shagging. And it's not for me. So anyway, we're moving on. I then planned to continue with the Lore Olympus series, and I wanted to read Lore Olympus Volume 3 and Volume 4, which I did. I read both of those last year. Thoroughly enjoyed them. And then I wanted to finish up the Left-Handed Booksellers duology by Garth Nix and read the Booksellers of Bath, which I did and really enjoyed and wished it was not a duology because I need more. It is ended in a way that if it is a duology, it's excellent and it's got a really great ending, but if he decides that he wants to dip back in, then he probably could, and I am just going to take that as a big fat positive that he might. And then I plan to continue my Meet Your Baker series by Ellie Alexander that I have been absolutely loving, and I plan to read the next 2 books in the series, which would have been A Batter of Life and Death and On Thin Icing. And so I did read books 2 and 3, but then I also read books 4, books 5, book 6, book 7, book 8 and book 9 in that series. You could say I was enjoying it, to be honest. It's just one of the best series I've found. It's so cute, it's so wholesome, like I'm really invested in the characters, like the political topics that it handles in it is enough to make it completely twee, like, but there's also like brilliant recipes and baking and cooking tips all throughout the book. I just love it. It is like one of my ultimate comfort reads at the moment, and it's a series I will definitely be continuing. Absolutely adore it. And then I also planned to finish the Dreamer trilogy, and so I had Mr. Impossible and Grey Warren to read last year. I read both of those, so that is a series I have completed. I then took part in a read-along of the Bargainer series. I don't know why that's such a difficult word for me to say, because I keep wanting to say Bargainer, even though I know it's bargain, because he makes bargains with people, so it's obviously Bargainer. So I took part in a read-along of this that was hosted by Ellie over at Errol Grey Books, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. We had such a laugh reading these books together. I got really into them. Like, for somebody who doesn't enjoy smut, was like, these are class. They were just like utter brilliant garbage, and I don't mean garbage as in to be disparaging in any way to the author or the work. Like, they books where, like, I'm trying to think of a term that isn't offensive, but it's like the equivalent of pure trashy TV. That's what these books were. I thoroughly enjoyed them, and I read the entire series, so it is a series that I have completed and would probably pick up other Laura Thalassa books after this, because there was smut in here, but I didn't feel like the smut detracted from the story in any way. And I was sort of feel like rooting for the smut in here because I loved the characters so much. I was like, yes, get your hole! which I normally am there. So I thoroughly enjoyed these. And then me and Ange hosted our read along to the Aurora Tea Garden series. We read all of those. It was quite a hit and miss series, to be honest. Some mixed reviews from the camp, but they were fun. They were quick wee cosy mystery reads, and they provided great rant fodder for us in the Discord. So I really enjoyed reading them. I had a fun time, and it's another series that I have completed. And then I wanted to read the Dorothy Must Die series. So Dorothy Must Die, The Wicked Will Rise, Yellow Brick War, End of Oz. I completed that series last year. I really enjoyed them. It was a really quick wee YA series, and I didn't like some of the representation of women in it, especially considering it was aimed at teenage girls, and I am not sure I would recommend this to teenage girls, to be honest, because I just think it's a bit problematic in places. However, I did really like all of the Dorothy Wizard of Oz references, thoroughly enjoyed them, and as an adult can discern the bullshit teenage lassie rhetoric from actual plot. And then I wanted to read the 4 books in the Merciless series by Danielle Vega. I realised, by the way, that if there are books around me, I'm like looking at the books when I'm talking about the books, which must be quite distracting. I plan to read the 4 of these. I only read the first one, so it will be counted as a series that I have started, but not one I have continued. And then I read the second book in the Legends and Lattes series by Travis Baldree, Bookshops and Mondust, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. So that is a series I have completed, because at the moment I can't see any information on whether or not he is continuing with that as a series, or if it's just going to be a duology, so I'm going to count it as completed for the minute. And then I started the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I read the first one, really enjoyed it. It will be a series I'd definitely like to continue. And then I plan to reread all the Twilight books so that I could finally read Breaking Dawn, and I did not get around to that, so great. I then plan to read the 4 Diviners books as well by Libba Bray. I did not get around to that. And then I read a duology, These Witches Won't Burn and This Coven Won't Break, and I thoroughly enjoyed both of those. I finished that duology, so that is a series I have completed. And then I started, for part of a Try That Trope, a cosy mystery series. The first one was called On What Grounds by Cleo Coyle, and I absolutely detested it, DNF'd it, will not continue the series. So that is where we have wrapped up with my I seriously need to finish this challenge. I will put in a wee graphic, because I haven't been keeping count of how many series I actually managed to finish, or how many I actually continued, but I'll include that in here so that we can see where we're sitting. Hopefully next year will be a wee bit more productive, but actually going through this, I have read quite a lot, so it's not too bad. Like, I'd say I'm halfway happy with where this is sitting, to be honest. Now we will jump over to Mac Amy, because all my stats are on there, and we'll just do a wee screen record on there talking about my stats for last year and see where we finished up in terms of the metrics that I was tracking and the goals I had set myself. Right, so these are my 2023 stats. So the first thing that I was tracking last year was gender. I wanted to make sure that I was reading from more female authors than male authors, and I wanted that to be about a 60-40 split. Normally pretty easy for me because of the genres I typically tend to read. So I read 67 books, which was 67% of my reading by female authors. I read 29 books, 29% by male authors, and then 4 books which came out at 4% as non-binary authors, which isn't too bad at all. Obviously, I'd like to include a wee bit more non-binary in there going forward. However, like, I'm not going to set myself goals for next year in the same way. I'm just going to track and see what I feel like reading. In terms of my ethnicity, I had set the goal of wanting to read 12 books by Scottish authors last year, and I didn't manage that. I only managed 5, which is unfortunate. So, not even half of my goal. So disappointing, because I really do like to try and raise up and talk about Scottish authors where and when possible. I think that we have some of the best authors in the world and we tell some of the best stories, so I like to try and hype them up. But obviously didn't do too great a job at that last year. And then I read 18 books by BAME authors, and 77% of my books were by white authors. I am not too unhappy with where that's sitting. I had said that I would like it to be sort of a like 3/4 white, and then the rest split between BAME and Scottish authors. I think that that is reasonable considering what I have on my shelves, and I do feel like last year I made Mary an effort to pick up books by BAME authors because I have so many on my shelves, so it was just to make myself a wee bit more mindful as to what I was picking up and when. And then my queer split, I've said all the time I'm happy for that to be 50-50, and that is sitting round about there. So queer books 51%, not queer books 49%. Really chuffed where that's sitting considering. And then in terms of about the book, so I always want to be reading more series than I am reading standalones because I'm doing a series I need to finish this challenge. So I'm actually really chuffed where that's sitting. So 67% of my books were in a series versus 33% which were in a standalone. In terms of format, I am the too fussed on, to be honest. I do a lot of audio, and it was just sort of an interesting stat for me to track really on what I was doing physically, mixed or audio on its own. I don't have any real goals in terms of this. So for audio, that made up 41% of my reading, mixed media made up 30%, and then physical reading made up 29%. So obviously I have been doing a lot more audiobooks last year. And then my traditional and indie published, I just decided to track this halfway through last year, and it was just on a whim, to be honest, because I do feel like I pick up quite a bit of indie published stuff. So I just wanted to see how that worked out. So it's the first year I've really tracked this, and it's something I'll definitely track going forward. So I read 89% traditionally published and 11% indie published, which actually isn't too bad. I feel like for that to have made up more than 10% of my reading, I'm pretty chuffed with that, to be honest. Obviously talking about indie books on the channel 10% of the time, which I think is pretty decent. And then the genres that I was reading last year, so this is really interesting compared to the year before, where YA, fantasy, horror have always been my top genres. This year, cozy mystery just absolutely blew everything away. I became a total cozy mystery addict, and then it's YA fantasy. But when you look at the fact that I read 24 cozy mysteries and 12 YA fantasies, which was like my most predominantly read genre before, that's quite a massive drop. I read 10 graphic novels. I read 9 horror novels. I read 8 literary fiction, which I'm really happy about because I was making more of an effort to be picking up literary fiction, and me and Angie's book club definitely helped with that goal. I read 7 middle grade, 6 fantasy, 4 non-fiction, 4 paranormal romance, 4 sci-fis, 3 contemporaries, 3 romance, 2 historical fiction, a classic, a contemporary romance, a dystopian, and a thriller. So actually, in terms of genres, I'm pretty chuffed with where that's sitting. I feel like I've managed to hit quite a lot, and some of the ones that I have been making more of an effort to pick up on, like the literary fictions and stuff, like I clearly have because they're up at the higher end of the spectrum. So I'm really pleased with that in terms of my genre split for the year. I really did make it a goal for me to be trying to pick up some different books and different genres. I was trying to do that through my try that tropes and stuff, and really dipping into books that I maybe wouldn't read ordinarily. And then the non-fiction, I don't typically read any non-fiction. Any non-fiction that I read last year was baby books. So that is the only reason that that is in there, to be honest. I can't pat myself on the back too much for that. But I'm really pleased with where those genres are sitting. I managed to hit quite a few different genres last year. My ratings then. So my Scottish authors tend to rate higher. So they're coming in at 4.4. My white authors I rate at 4.21, and then my BAME authors I'm rating at 3.67. I will say that that is so low, purely because of Taheri Mafi. She really pulled down the BAME author rating last year. I'm actually surprised it isn't lower, considering I think I gave like the last three books in her series like 1 star, 2 star each. So that's where that disparity comes from. And I'm comfortable with that because I know where that was. I don't feel like I am rating BAME authors harsher than I am white authors. It was just that one god awful author. And then my non-binary authors I rate 4.5 stars on average. My male authors 4.14, and then my female authors 4.9. Again, quite interesting that female are the lowest rated. I think that that's probably just because I have read so much. And again, Taheri Mafi's in there, so maybe bringing things down a wee bit. She definitely skewed my stats lower this year. Whereas last year Charlene Harris skewed my stats higher. This year Taheri Mafi skewed them the other way. In terms of my queer split, I rate queer books 4.22 stars and non-queer books 4.02 stars. Now the non-queer books have improved from last year. Last year I think like my non-queer stat average rating was sitting at about 3, whereas my queer were sitting closer to the 5. So I remember people commenting like, if you read just exclusively queer books and cut out non-queer books, you're going to have like a better reading time. And then in terms of my indie versus traditional published, I'm really surprised at this stat. So my indie published I'm rating higher. That's coming in at 4.36 stars, and my traditional is sitting at 4.9 stars. Again, it's the first year I've ever tracked that metric, so I don't really have a trend to compare it to, but it'll be interesting to see like in 2024 when I track that stat, how that goes. And then my series versus standalone, I rate my series higher, so that's coming in at 4.16, and my standalones are coming in at 4.03. Happy with that because I'm focusing so much on I seriously need to finish this challenge that I want to be enjoying my series more. And then in terms of my rating breakdown by genre, so my classic was a 5 star, contemporary romance 5 star, non-fictional 5 star, romance 5 star, thriller 5 star, paranormal romance 4.75, graphic novel 4.5, sci-fi 4.5, cozy mystery 4.38, middle grade 4.14, historical fiction 4, literary fiction 4, horror 3.78. I was going to say I'm surprised my horror so low, but actually I read a pretty awful horror towards the end of the year that probably brought that down. Fantasy 3.67, contemporary 3.33, YA fantasy 3.17, and then my dystopian sitting down at a 2. So considering like horror, YA fantasy and cozy mysteries these days tend to be my most commonly read genres, they're sort of at the bottom of the scale this year in terms of my rating, which is really interesting as well. If we go into what I have DNF'd this year, I have DNF'd 8 titles by white authors and 1 title by a BAME author. I have DNF'd 7 books by female authors and 2 books by male authors. 8 of those books were non-queer, 1 was queer. They were all traditionally published. 5 were standalones and 4 were series. 4 were YA fantasy, 2 were non-fiction, 1 was a crime thriller, 1 was a literary fiction, and 1 was a romance. Pretty happy with those stats. I mean, I don't like to DNF. It's not like I set out with a purpose to DNF a book, but like it's clear to see if a book's not working for me that I have been DNFing, and I've been DNFing across multiple genres, and clearly not just sticking with something. So I'm chuffed with that. I'm not going to go into my page count and things like that because I've already spoke about that. We've already got that detail from Goodreads, so I'm not going to go into that here. But I'm actually pretty chuffed with where I'm sitting. considering. I wasn't too sure how my stats were going to go and where my goals were going to go. I haven't achieved everything I set out to achieve. I could definitely be improving when it comes to my non-binary authors, my BAME authors and my Scottish authors for sure. But everything else, I'm pretty comfortable with where that's sitting, and I'm happy because I know I did take a bit of a major nosedive at the end of the year. So I'm chuffed to where that's sitting. Thank you very much for watching. It's been really nice to sit down and have a gibberways about books again. Hopefully you're enjoying everything that you're reading at the moment. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!